who he is. I guess that obviously there are lots of different ways to direct a play, but something typically one might do with a character is start fleshing out what their background is, and who do we think their parents are likely to be. Very hard to do with a character like this. So how do you work with the idea of character in a rehearsal room with a play that in some ways is as spare about those details as this?
I mean, it's very interesting that as a director and kind of fleshing out characters, I always think it's quite dangerous to do too much work which the audience are never going to be able to access. I think it's about just putting enough work into it so that the architecture is there for the actors to be able to embody it. But actually creating whole backstories that become a sort of secret from the audience, I always find rather uncomfortable. So I think what's amazing about this play is that obviously Stephen knew Beckett. And so we had a kind of weird sort of Venn diagram, slippery conversation that often, because so many of the things that happen in the play to Krapp, things that actually happened to Beckett. And Beckett was a huge romantic as well, and that's kind of famously known, famously known. But also, things like the room where his mother died, and he sat outside and looked in the window on the canal, things like that. So we sort of unpacked it sort of by sort of thinking what Beckett was writing about, and then who was the character of Krapp within that. And of course there's so much information about Krapp, so we did, we worked on every single word and every syllable to understand what that meant for Krapp and what that story was. So it's a really visual picture for Stephen when we do it. But there's like a lovely thing, the white boots. So in the stage directions it says that he's wearing white boots. And of course, Stephen knew that Beckett was obsessed with cricket. So they're like 1950s cricket boots that he's wearing. So there are things like that that have made this so sort of unique and special because of that kind of thinking, really. Yeah.
I mentioned that obviously his stage directions are very precise and they're very well chosen as well. Like he doesn't, even though he tells you a lot about what's happening, it's never too much. It feels to me. One thing obviously is props. Because this is a play in a certain way it's quite proppy, but actually they're just a few chosen, a couple of bananas, obviously the machine, the spools, and so on. What do they? This is a broad question, but so take it however you want to. But what do the props kind of do to the performance? Do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I hate props. I like sort of emptiness and clips, which you can probably see. But in the unbelievably brilliant Beckett notebooks, he talks a lot about as the production went on and as he saw it, he hated the clutter of it and he wanted it to be taken absolutely away because he wanted us to just concentrate on the dark and the lights and things which were not moving and things which were moving, and then silence and then noise. And so these contrasts were these are the things that he was looking at. So we really listened to that. So for example, in the original stage directions, it says that all of this is already on stage, and there's sort of like there's a sort of room around it. Whereas I love the idea that we would take the sort of massive darkness here and this sort of lightness, and we would just play with that. And there's another really brilliant stage direction at the beginning, which says this is set sometime in the future, and that was the real key to me and Jamie, the designer. Because I was like, wow, it's set in the future. It doesn't need to look like Scrooge's house. It doesn't need to be sort of, English Victorian. Which is kind of what you feel the feeling of it is, sort of scruffy. Yes. So yes, I really took that. We just sort of read into everything. But yeah, everything is only here because it is relevant to us understanding him. There's nothing superfluous. Much more interesting.
He's eating more bananas, Claudia.
You've got a microphone.
I've been passing time till you got here. Just been chatting.
We were just talking about props, and I see you brought your own prop on with you, which is great. What's it like as an actor having to work with like this machine and with the ledger and the dictionary and so
on? I don't know. You just learn to do it,
Right.
I mean, I'm not to be, you know what I mean.
Okay.
It was okay, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was okay. It's really, I mean, yes, it's okay. Now. It was very time consuming, though, because, you know, you have to get it right. So
Yeah.
we spent so much time and, you know, these tape recorders are hard to manage. So yeah, and we wanted to be talking about. Yeah, I did.
And I know
Never do a Q&A with an actor.
I know there are some actors who say they never ever want to watch themselves on TV or film. What's it like acting with yourself?
Well, I don't like watching myself on TV or film. And, you know, there's lots of things that I've just never even seen. But I find it. You see, I recorded the tape a very long time ago, and it doesn't feel like me, you know. And it isn't me. It's crap.
It was interesting when we first heard the tapes, though, because you hadn't heard them, had you?
No.
And there was this sort of moment of like you heard them first on your own. But it's quite a big moment hearing the tapes and just listening to them for the first time.
Yeah.
So long after and realising that we're going to be part of the production.
You were going to fire me, weren't you?
Because I think sometimes Beckett deliberately puts the actor in a sort of parallel situation to the character in a way, so that the actor's experience is kind of directly feeding in. Were there moments where you listen to yourself and kind of think, why did he say that line like that? Or was there any battle between you as an actor now and you as an actor 20 years ago?
We changed a couple of things, but only for emphasis, really. You know, it might have been that I hadn't acknowledged something in the later text that would be improved by. But no, I just think. I mean, I know everybody's now recording, you know, the early tapes, you know. But I think it worked, you know. It's all you know. It's and my voice is different, you know. And it's not a method thing, you know. If I listen to myself a long time previously, it'll be more real to my understanding of it. It's not really that. It's just because I mean, it's Beckett's stuff is so sublime, you know, and you just do your best with it, you know.
And I mean, the blunt question that I asked Vicky was, who is Krapp? And I just wondered how you as an actor, how did you work with trying to find your way into the performance of this character? When Beckett is both quite generous with information about this character and also quite sparse as well.
How is he generous?
Well, I suppose on the tapes, he gives you very vivid senses of glimpses of a life that's actually lived in the world. You know, it's not like one of the much later Beckett things that seems to be much more reduced and.
I kind of think he's having a good dig at himself, you know, because it is about him.
Right. Yeah.
And then he's so magnificent with language, and I don't mean to be endlessly boring about the notes that he gave me, you know.
You're not boring. You are allowed to tell this audience the notes that Beckett gave you. That's what they're here for.
Yeah, I know. It's just that, you know, it does apply to everything, actually, not just Beckett, but it certainly applies. You know, that I asked him the meaning of a particular line when we were doing Endgame, and he said, "Don't think about meaning, think about rhythm." And I think that's a great note. I think it's a truly great note. And And another one was when Clove constantly says, "I leave you." I asked him at one point when he says, "I leave you," at this point, does it mean he's going to the kitchen or he's going for good? And Beckett said, "It is always ambiguous." Right? So, I mean, those are great notes for an actor, right? Doing any play, to be honest. I believe, and look at the note that he gave Billy Whitelaw, the truly great, wonderful Billy Whitelaw, when she was doing Happy Days, and she was up to her neck in sand, and they were rehearsing, and she said to Sam, "Where should I be looking now?" And he said, "Inwards."
It's a good one now.
Yeah. I mean, these are all notes of a man that understood acting in the most extraordinary way, you know. And you know, a lot of people in our business don't really understand acting, you know. I'm not looking.
Name names, please.
No.
Never actually.
I just no, but they don't, you know. And I mean, you've probably talked about all this, but the sublime thing that Vicky has done in this is to construct a design concept that reflects the play more than 1,000 books lying around a hovel of a, you know. Yeah. I think it's extraordinary. You may clap.
I said at the very beginning that I remember reading this when I was like 16 or something at school, and a bit like Vicky said, not really getting it, thinking of Krapp as being this rather ludicrous, grotesque figure. Now, many decades on, oh my God, you know, the sympathy, you have this character. I thought one of the things I was very struck in this production, which I've seen it a few times, but I was struck by it in this production, which I haven't been quite so struck before, is the sort of, it's going to be a funny word to use, but the sort of erotic quality of it. And by that, I suppose I mean that when Krapp, when Krapp talks about this encounter or the end of this relationship or whatever it seems to me there's nothing grotesque about it, there's nothing disgusting or bestial about it, that actually it's a moment of tenderness and regret and so on, that actually he's taking that physical passion seriously. Is that something you recognise, or am I imagining it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, he did write about himself, you know. It's deeply distressing when it comes to that in the play, you know, that he lets her go. And
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to find the tape to give himself some comfort that has this story on it lie down across her, this moment of being in the boat and all of that, because it was like his most perfect moment, and he ended it in pursuit of being a writer, and he's a terrible writer, so he has to, not terrible writer, he's an unsuccessful writer, so he has to kind of try and find that again. And I just felt that sort of imagery of all of that, the eyes, he's constantly talking about eyes, he loses himself in the eyes, and the whole thing of like the tapes going around and everything. Yeah, he would eat that tape if he could.
Yeah. And a question, I mean, you've talked a bit about your own knowledge of Beckett, your own experience with Beckett. How far was Beckett a presence in the rehearsal room?
Nah, I never noticed him. No, he was a total presence, of course, because everybody, look, there were three major presences in that room. There was Patrick McGee, for whom he had written Krapp, and Donald McQuinney, who had directed, was responsible for luring Beckett into theatre, and then there was the missing presence of Jack McGarren, who in Endgame, who Jack gave me my first job in London, and thereby ushered me into the collection of Beckett actors, you know, because and you know, but I'm not answering your question. It was a huge presence. They adored him. They adored him, and he adored them, you know, and I hung around in the background. Well, I was young, you know.
Yeah.
Didn't want to make a mistake.
Can I ask a question which you feel free to say? I have no idea. Don't know. Didn't think about that. Why is it called Krapp's Last Tape?
Ah, well, is the answer to that. He nearly called it Ah, well.
Yeah.
Because he says "ah, well" 3 times in it, and actually, you know, I think that really sums the play up amazingly. It's less marketable, but I think it really is what the play is. I don't know why he changed to Krapp's Last Tape. He did ask the question, does Krapp know it's his last tape? We know because we've bought our tickets. But I don't know if Krapp knows it's his last tape. Stephen might know the answer to that. No, I don't know. But yeah, so I don't really know why it's called Krapp's Last Tape.
No, but I think he does know at the end. You know, I think he knows. You know, he's just realised that. You know, that's it.
Okay, and the last question that I'm going to ask, and it's a big question again, so take this however you want to take this. But obviously in the 1950s, I think, when this play appeared, and in fact when Beckett's work first appeared in theatre, there was a sort of sense that this was resonating with a post-Second World War world, atomic warfare, obviously the Holocaust, the sense of the collapse of various kinds of meanings that are propped up, I don't know, the West or whatever. And so it resonated in particular ways then. What do you think, working on it, how has this play resonating with the 21st century, with the 2020s, as you've been working on it? How does it speak to us, do you think?
It's interesting that, because I think what we tend to do is try to find parallels with actual data, with things that are actually happening in our world when we think about that question. And actually, what's been very liberating with this play is it feels it's about everything that we are now, but without having to think about what we've read in a newspaper or what that is. And I think that's kind of, it's really hard to make art like that now. It's really hard to take the space to be allowed to do that, especially for playwrights. People need to know what the play's about and what it's being hung on and who it's for and all of those things. So I think the thing that feels extraordinary for now is that this doesn't have to do that, yet it has, I hope, has real resonance for people in some way, in a profound way. So that's what I found about it.
I just, you take it as you find it, and it's meaningful without.
Interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I mean, you know, I take no credit for but the audience tonight seemed to be right in it. You know what I mean? So.
You got a tick from Steve.
No, it's just. And actually, I have seen productions of it that didn't make me laugh as much as this, you know. You know.
Well, look, I'm really sorry, that is all we've got time for, so can I ask you to join me in thanking and
was well worth staying, wasn't it? Definitely. So when they stopped for ages.